We start at number 10 with Philip J. Pierre, the Prime Minister of St. Lucia, with an estimated net worth of $2.24 million. Pierre now controls St. Lucia's Citizenship by investment program, a system where wealthy foreigners pay to get a St. Lucian passport. In fiscal year 2023 to 2024, that program contributed $45 million to government funds. Then in the very next year, applications jumped by 424% and revenue grew by 296%. Pierre sits at number 10 because his declared wealth is relatively easy to explain. But he is now the man in charge of one of the fastest growing passport operations in the Caribbean. Keep that in mind as we go higher up this list, because the same program in different islands, under different names, keeps showing up again. Number 9, we have Terrance Drew, Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, with an estimated net worth of $3 to $5 million. Before politics, he was a medical doctor, a respected career, a stable income. But now, he sits on top of something far bigger than any medical practice in the Caribbean. St. Kitts runs the oldest citizenship by investment program in the entire world. It started in 1980, for over 40 years ago, and the numbers behind it are extraordinary. An internal government review found that the CBI program generated 50% of the federal government's entire cash revenue over the previous 5 years. And in 2022 alone, that number hit an unsustainable 60%. More than half of a government's total income was coming from selling passports to wealthy foreigners from Russia, China, the Middle East, and beyond. Drew himself has publicly acknowledged this over-reliance and promised to reform the program. But right now he is still the man who controls it. His government salary as Prime Minister is modest, and the program is still running. Number 8 is a comeback story that the entire Caribbean watched closely. Kamla Persad-Bissessar returned to power in Trinidad and Tobago on May 1, 2025, becoming Prime Minister again after 10 years in opposition. She is the first woman to ever hold that office in TNT, and she has now done it twice. Her estimated net worth is around $5 to $8 million. But here is what makes her entry on this list genuinely interesting. Trinidad and Tobago's previous year before her return was the deadliest in the country's modern recorded history, a homicide rate of 45.7 people per every 100,000 citizens. The economy was shrinking. Natural gas production, which generates over 80% of the country's export revenue, had been declining for 15 straight years. Kamla came back promising to reopen the shuttered state oil company Petrotrin and rebuild the economy. But within months of taking power, she had invited us military radar systems and Marines onto Trinidadian soil, given American warships access to local ports, and broken publicly with CARICOM, the Caribbean's own regional alliance. Former Prime Minister Keith Rowley accused her of turning Trinidad into an American vassal state. A Secretary of State Marco Rubio praised her as a strong friend. She controls a country sitting on billions in energy wealth. She has made some of the most controversial foreign policy decisions in Caribbean history, and her personal net worth keeps growing while the public asks who exactly is benefiting from these new military and energy partnerships. Number 7 is one of the most talked about leaders in the hemisphere right now, Irfaan Ali, President of Guyana, with an estimated net worth of $8 to $12 million. The story here is not just about one man, but before he ever sat in the presidential chair, Ali was convicted in 2020 on land fraud charges connected to the sale of government housing lots at prices far below their actual value. Deals that cost the Guyanese public millions. He denied wrongdoing and received a pardon before taking office. His supporters point to genuine economic growth numbers. His critics point to the fact that a man convicted of fraud now controls one of the most oil-rich governments in the Western Hemisphere. His personal wealth has grown steadily since he took power. The oil keeps flowing, and the questions have never gone away. Number 6 is Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, and the subject of one of the most dramatic financial investigations in Caribbean political history. His officially declared family assets sit at approximately 192 million Jamaican dollars, about $1.3 million. That is what the paperwork says. But the story behind those numbers is far more complicated. In 2002, Holness and his wife struggled to put together a down payment of just 1.67 million Jamaican dollars for their first home and needed to separate mortgages to do it. Yet by 2007, as a Minister of Education on a government salary, he declared liquid assets of $472,531, nearly $500,000 in cash. a minister of education, earning a standard government salary, somehow accumulated nearly $500,000 in liquid cash in just 5 years. Investigators were not satisfied. The probe found that deposit and withdrawal transactions of $473 million and $427 million Jamaican dollars involving Holness-connected companies raised serious questions, and investigators could not certify his 2021 asset declaration. Investigators also discovered in 2020 that Holness had failed to disclose his ownership of a company called Imperium Holdings Limited, a holding vehicle he later admitted was used for all his assets, liabilities, income, and expenses. Holness has denied wrongdoing and has taken the Integrity Commission itself to the Supreme Court, calling the investigation unconstitutional. Criminal charges were ruled out due to insufficient evidence. The case continues, and in September 2025, despite all of this, he led his party to a historic third consecutive general election victory. The Jamaican public voted him back in. The financial questions voted themselves back in with him. Number 5 is Mia Mottley, Prime Minister of Barbados, and she is one of the most recognizable political figures in the entire world. She has been in power since 2018. She won every single seat in Parliament in that first election, all 30 seats, the most dominant electoral victory in Barbadian history. She has stood before the United Nations and demanded that rich countries pay for the climate damage they are causing to small islands. She has sat with presidents and finance ministers at World Bank tables and reshaped the conversation around debt for small states. Her estimated net worth is between $5 and $10 million. But what separates Mottley from most people on this list is her origin. She did not climb from nothing. Her grandfather, Ernest Dayton Mottley, was a successful real estate broker and the first mayor of Bridgetown in 1959. He sat in the Barbados House of Assembly for nearly 3 decades. Her father, Sir Elliot Mottley, was a Queen's Counsel barrister who later became Consul General. In New York, Mia was first elected to Parliament at age 29. She attended the United Nations International School in New York and later earned her law degree from the University of London. She was already connected to power and money before she ever cast a vote in Parliament. Her critics in Barbados have alleged she has acquired substantial private interests during her time in office, including stakes in hotel developments and plantation land connected to family members. Mottley has denied these allegations, but in a country of fewer than 300,000 people, where her family has shaped politics for 3 generations, the line between public power and private wealth is one that Barbadians debate constantly. At number 4 we have the man who came into politics already rich and never stopped growing. Gaston Browne, Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, with an estimated net worth of $15 to $30 million. Unlike several others on this list, Browne actually declared much of his wealth openly. Speaking in Parliament, he stated that he declared in excess of $30 million, about $11 million in assets to the Integrity Commission when he first took office in 2014, and he claimed every cent was earned before he ever touched government. He built his fortune in banking and real estate. He knows money. He understands deals. And now he controls one of the most lucrative citizenship by investment programs in the Caribbean. In 2025 alone, Antigua's CBI program is projected to contribute over $222.9 million to the country's non-tax revenue. That is $222 million flowing through a program that Browne's government oversees. But a federal investigator's declaration filed in a U.S. court alleged a troubling pattern of self-dealing connected to his administration, including a reported all-cash purchase of a Florida property worth $673,000, a yacht valued at over $250,000, and at least 5 corporate entities connected to a close associate that received extraordinary government concessions. Browne has denied all wrongdoing. He is unapologetic, outspoken, and deeply controversial. He is also the longest continuously serving leader on the Eastern Caribbean islands today. The money and the power have moved together for over a decade. Number 3 is the cleanest name on this list, Luis Abinader, President of the Dominican Republic, with an estimated net worth of $50 to $100 million. And here's what makes him stand apart from virtually everyone else in this countdown. Abinader was already wealthy before he ever ran for president. He is the heir to the Abinader family's massive hotel and real estate empire. The Dominican Republic is the largest tourism economy in the entire Caribbean. His family was building hotels and managing resorts long before he entered politics. His money has a clear paper trail. He now runs the largest economy in the entire Caribbean by GDP, overseeing billions in tourism revenue, foreign direct investment, and trade. He is a genuinely wealthy man whose wealth predates his power. On a list full of politicians whose wealth grew suspiciously fast, Abinader is the exception. But the exception still makes you wonder about all the others even more. Number 2 is Ralph Gonsalves. Comrade Ralph, former Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and one of the most fascinating contradictions in Caribbean political history. He called himself a socialist. He came from the political left. He spent 24 years talking about the poor, about workers, about equality, and he leaves office with an estimated personal net worth of $20 to $40 million. He was voted out in November 2025 after more than 2 decades of continuous rule, one of the longest unbroken runs of any Caribbean leader in modern history. During those 24 years, his government ran a citizenship by investment program with limited public transparency. His family members were involved in various business arrangements. His opposition repeatedly called for full financial disclosure and never received it. St. Vincent and the Grenadines is one of the poorer islands in the Caribbean. It does not have the oil of Trinidad or the tourism machine of the Dominican Republic. What it had was Comrade Ralph for 24 years and a passport program and a government that decided its financial details were not the public's business. He is gone now. But the accounting his people are still waiting for is not going anywhere, and now we arrive at number 1. The man whose story made us open with that number at the very beginning. Roosevelt Skerrit, Prime Minister of Dominica, with an estimated net worth of $50 to $100 million or more. Skerrit has been Prime Minister since 2004. That is over 20 consecutive years of power in a country with fewer than 75,000 people. No election lost. No serious break in power. Just one man, one tiny island, and a passport program that became one of the most talked about financial operations in the Caribbean. In fiscal year 2022 to 2023, Dominica's citizenship by investment program generated $232 million in a single year, contributing an unprecedented 37% of the entire country's GDP. In just over 3 years across that period, the program raised $1.2 billion in total. Every wealthy foreigner who wanted a Dominican passport paid at least $200,000 to get it. Every one of those deals passed through Skerrit's government. The opposition went to court demanding the release of full contract details between the government and its CBI agents. The United Kingdom became so alarmed by the lack of oversight that in 2023 it revoked visa-free access for Dominican passport holders, a public international embarrassment for the program. Ireland followed in 2024. The US government has repeatedly flagged Dominica's CBI program in official reports on corruption and lack of transparency. Skerrit lives in a large private residence that opposition politicians have questioned publicly for years, asking out loud how a career public servant earning a government salary can afford it. His supporters point to real results: new roads, climate-resilient housing, and a new international airport now under construction. His critics point to over $1 billion in passport revenue flowing through one government, controlled by one man, for over 20 years, with no full independent audit ever made public. 20 years, 75,000 citizens, $1.2 billion. No complete public accounting. That is why Roosevelt Skerrit is number 1, and it is not even close, when a politician's personal wealth grows at a rate that no government salary can explain year after year. Island after island, the public is not being paranoid to ask questions. They are being responsible, because the numbers on this list do not add up to the paychecks these politicians were ever paid. Like this video if it opened your eyes. Your one tap keeps independent Caribbean journalism alive.